All right. Good. What do you think of when I say the word graffiti? Most of you probably thought of something, a name scribbled on a back of the building wall, and very few, if any of you, thought of an intricate piece of art that has a lot of meaning behind it. In 1960s, the first known graffiti artist was found as he used to tag buildings around his school in order to get the attention of a girl. But as Margot Thompson explained in her 2009 book, American Graffiti, the graffiti movement really took off in 1970s when it used to be a representation of low income and high crime areas, but then moved on to being a representation of a true form of art used to really express yourselves. Graffiti is not something that you'd find in a museum, but rather sporadically placed around almost any urban city in the world. After living in LA for my entire life and visiting cities like New York, Amsterdam, London, and Paris, which have a high concentration of street art, I found that the meanings of art found in a museum versus on the street are vastly different. And that being said, the meanings of street art, the different types of street art, like tagging buildings or the intricate, thought-provoking pieces, are also vastly different. Let's begin with art hung in a museum, art hung in a museum, and street art. There's a certain excitement that comes with doing something that you're not supposed to, or defying the rules. It happens to all of us when we're told not to do something, we immediately get this urge to do just that thing. The same can be said for seeing a piece of art in an unexpected location and not knowing whether or not it was permitted. Art in a museum is blocked off from getting too close to it. An example is the Mona Lisa. You actually have to stand fairly far from the Mona Lisa to actually see the piece, and not to mention the piece itself is only 2.5 feet by 2 feet. Art in a museum is protected so that it doesn't get damaged, and art critic Lyndon Mello mentions this in his Scientific American article in 2013 titled How to Destroy Priceless Works of Art. He mentions that the oil on our fingers can actually denature the oil on a canvas, and flash photography and harsh lighting can diminish the quality of the watercolors on a painting. Graffiti, on the other hand, is out in the world for everyone to see, free of charge, and simply for enjoyment and expression. A 2018 study done by the Mount Vernon Presbyterian School studied the reactions of fourth graders to both spectrums of art, where they took them on a museum tour one day and a street art tour the next. And the consensus was that they preferred the street art because, quote, they didn't have to stay in one place and they could touch the artwork. To continue, tagging has given the term graffiti its negative connotation. You can see it walking through almost any city, or even in the bathroom stalls, illegible scribbles written on the wall that make you question why somebody would want to do that. In 2015, Dr. Theodore Dalrymple discussed the psychological reasons behind tagging in his Psychology Today article titled Why Vandals Strike. First and foremost, he refers back to the human nature of wanting to do something strictly because it's not allowed. Graffiti artists have a strong desire to go against the rules to get attention. He explains that it can also, a lot of graffiti artists come from a lower social class, and having graffiti can actually give them some sort of power, despite it being the smallest amount. Dr. Jeffrey Chase, a psychology professor at Radford University and clinical psychologist, also tries to tackle the psychological reasons behind it in his 2004 article titled Tattooing Buildings. He says that graffiti can be a form of aggression for juveniles, and he explains, quote, it can be a displacement in the technical sense that they wish to do something to a more threatening object or individual, so they vent their anger on something safer, like graffiti and tagging a building. In contrast to tagging, artists who choose to do more complex pieces can give the term graffiti its positive connotation. Many graffiti artists, like Banksy and Shepard Fairey, have chosen to do more thought-provoking works that give it a more positive connotation. Banksy has created some of the most controversial and interesting pieces. One of his most controversial would be Flower Thrower, that's depicted here. It is especially controversial in that it has many interpretations of it. In Alexandra Duncan's 2018 article in Modern Art Insight titled Banksy, she says that the most common interpretation of this is that he is advocating for peace over war, which is something that he does in a lot of his pieces. As you can see, the man is depicted in sort of an aggressive stance, but what he's holding is not an explosive or weapon of any kind, but rather a fragrant bouquet of flowers. Another piece of his is global warming. The idea behind it is that as sea levels rise, it will completely submerge in water. And Sirens of the Lambs, where he had a member of his staff drive around the meatpacking district of New York with this truck with slaughterhouse noises playing out of it, and many more that he creates. Shepard Fairey began his career with the Obey stickers in LA, something that you may have seen throughout the streets of LA and also many other cities. It was a comedic way of telling people to do things their own way because it depicts Andre the Giant and the word obey, which is kind of funny because Andre the Giant did anything but obey societal norms. He continued his career with the Obama campaign as he created this poster, and as in a 2017 article in The Guardian by Bridget Delaney titled Shepard Fairey, she examines this poster and says that it was used a lot to advocate for him as well as contributed to his success because it helped people motivated to vote for him. Overall, the contrast between museum art and street art, and the contrast between tagging and thought-provoking pieces can help formulate your own opinion of graffiti. There's a variety of reasons behind graffiti, and so my question for you now is, are these illegal pieces that you see sporadically placed around cities and in the streets, are they intricate pieces of art, or are they simply vandalism used to deface buildings?